Hey friends, Logan here, one of your co-hosts with the Better Events podcast. And in this week's episode, we are diving into an interview that we did with Casey Catherwood all about the qualities and traits and secret sauce that it takes to be a good MC. Now, if you're an aspiring MC or an event organizer who has to hire and work with MCs or hosts or masters of ceremonies, as you might have called them, this episode's for you. It has some great takeaways, so I highly encourage you to keep listening. Before we get into it, we want to hear from you listeners. We're going to be doing a very special listeners mailbag episode, and we highly encourage you to send us an email with your answers to why you love events and any questions that you have for Mary or myself, whether it's about the podcast, event planning, event production, management, running our own business. We want to hear it all. And just by sending us your questions, you're going to be entered to win a very special gift from Mary and I from the Better Events podcast. So please send them in as early as you can. Without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Welcome to the Better Events podcast. Join two event strategists, Logan Clements and Mary Davidson, who believe we can all create, host, and attend better events. In this podcast, you will learn about event strategy and actions that you can use today as an event host, planner, or manager. Hear directly from the people who are creating innovative and inspiring events today and tomorrow, and grow your business along the way. Now, let's get started, and thanks for listening to the Better Events podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Events podcast. We are thrilled to be with you today. This is Mary Davidson, one of your co-hosts. And today we have a wonderful guest who's joining us. We are talking about qualities of a good MC with Casey Catherwood. And we have a bio for Casey. We're going to introduce him, and I'm going to pass it over to Logan, my co-host, who is going to do that. So Logan, take it away.
Thanks, Mary. Yes, we are very enthusiastic. We say excited all the time. So we are excited, but also enthusiastic about our guest today. Casey Catherwood is an artist, musician, entertainer, writer, and professional pheasant living in the United States of America. He is honored to be asked to speak and host community events in the South Sound and around the world. Welcome, Casey.
Thank you
Is
guys
there
so
anything
much.
you want to add to your bio?
I just enthusiastic to be here, enthusiastic person overall. And that's probably why I've been asked to be a host for varying events since I was like 10 years old.
A child host. I love it.
I was a child host, not a child star, but definitely a child host, and always been a class clown type. And just, yeah, you know how this all goes. It seems like we're going to talk about how the origins of a host here on the cast today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. And we like to do a little bit about why we asked our guests. And so with Casey specifically, this to me is like a weird, almost like creepy, funny story. I don't know. But I was attending a Tacoma Rainiers game, which is a baseball game here locally. And Casey was the former field host, I believe, right, of the Tacoma Rainiers. And so I just was attending it, watching the game. And I thought that it was super entertaining. I thought the activities were entertaining. I thought it was great. I thought you were really entertaining. And I was with my husband, and he was like, that guy, he'd make a really good MC. And I'm like, you're right. Yes. And because we were talking about events and things like that. And so I got connected with Casey after, and we chatted a bit about events and emceeing. And then, so it's been great. And we're happy to have you on the podcast to talk further about it. And we haven't talked about this topic at all. So really enthused to hear what we're going to talk about today and hear more from you. So just thank you again for being here.
Oh my gosh. Thank you guys. And very flattered. And when you say former Rainiers host, I did it for 8 years, and who knows, I could be doing more of it next year. It's an addictive thing. And, yeah, being a host, once you've got the host in your blood, it's hard to get it out. So, more hosting to be done in the future for sure.
Yeah. Well, perfect. We're excited to see what it's in store for the future. And to jump into our questions for today, listeners have an episode coming up that's about event lingo and jargon. So you'll be able to hear that. But one of the things that we will probably talk about in that a little bit is about like an MC, like how it's spelled. It's either capital M, capital C,
right.
It's EMCE, it's a host, it's a master of ceremonies. Right. What is it? So there's so many different words, but regardless, I guess, of the different names for the role, how would you define an MC?
Yeah, I think in MC, I would probably prefer the EMCEE. I kind of like how that, but a master of ceremonies, my gosh. And realistically, a master of ceremonies is your point of focus in moments that are appropriate, right? So you want a host to come in here, and for most events, you're trying to convey information or a mood or an excitement feeling, and you need someone that commands that attention without being too much. And there's a balance that needs to be struck there. But that is going to, be a presence and be confident to help your message get across. So if it's an event, it's a charity event. Obviously, what are you trying to do most of the time at a charity event? You're trying to share what your organization, nonprofit, whatever is doing. And a lot of the time you're trying to convince people to give you money. So you need a host that's going to do that succinctly, not lose people's attention. And you can go all the way down to a guy in a wrestling ring. He's got to know the names of the wrestlers, get them in the ring, and get the crowd fired up. So yeah, that point of attention is super important, and that confidence. And you got to know your stuff,
Yeah, I love always saying with hosts, especially if I have anyone who, or MCs, if they are less experienced, I sometimes feel like I have to remind them that they are in control of the audience, and very much they're kind of like the conduit for the audience in terms of setting the scene for how we want you to act and what kind of the host could energize. The host can also quickly lose the audience
for sure.
But often that like push-pull relationship that I feel like they're like, you have the control to up the energy, you also have the control to make us feel heartfelt moments. It's a lot of pressure sometimes. I don't know if I'd want to be a host. I have a lot of respect for you guys. But
behind the scenes is super important. Like it's all part of the wheel, right? And you definitely with a host too. And I think we're going to probably get into questions about the best qualities and all of that. But you need someone that's going to work well inside the team, right? Like take the message, soak it in, whatever the goals are. This is a driver and engine of that. That's as important as the program, right? Like the minute by minute program to the actual little program that people get at the door that tells them how to donate or when the food is being served. It's just the piece of the cog. And I believe it's an important piece of the cog, but only because I got to keep paying my bills, you guys. My gosh.
Yeah, well, there you go. We all got bills to pay. I feel like as we start, again, we're still on this kind of broad view, but what does like onboarding of an MC look like? What kind of information do you look for about an event that you need from the planners, the organizers, or the companies that help set you up for success?
For sure. I think that sometimes more is better for me. And I don't know if most people are like that. So I'll try to speak just from if I was writing a guidebook for hiring a host. I think having a solid idea before you go and approach someone is great, unless you're planning on having that person be on the front end collaborative with you on what your event is going to be. But if someone is like resolute about what their event it looks like in their mind, which most events are like that, then you obviously want to get a solid date in hand. It's so often I'll be asked to do an event and I'll say, yeah, that sounds great. And they'll be like, we'll let you know when the date is. And it's like, why don't you contact me when you have the date and the place and the time? Because those are like pretty essential things for people to move their world around to be at an event. But then, like speaking points are great. I like to get those ahead of time. Sometimes you'll go to an event and they'll say, here's a 20-page script we just want you to read, and like go ahead and make it fun. They're always like, make it fun if you want, but here's the script. And it's like, I love that, and I also will get nothing and just be like, here are the bullet points. And I just say the more information the better is probably the best place to kind of start with the onboarding. And then having a date and time is important too.
We totally feel you on that. I know sometimes folks reach out to us when they don't have a date, and it's like, well, I can only help you so far. Like we gotta hold our date. So
it sounds interesting. Yeah, it sounds like it could be good and fun, but just let me know when you have that lockdown. And that's I get it. There's there's so many moving pieces for all of these backstories, and I try to, meet people where they're at, and it usually works out.
Yeah. But maybe they'll want you so bad that they will pick a date for you that works for you.
Hey,
That best
that's
case
nice too.
scenario.
That's nice
Yeah.
too. I don't,
Yeah.
I don't like this much. I don't need that much. I don't need
Uh-huh.
that much.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's super helpful. And thinking through also, we've already mentioned the importance of engaging the audience. How would you suggest, I guess, that MCs engage audiences? And then also if you have examples of fun things that you've done to engage audiences.
For sure. I mean, the thing I was kind of, it made me a little sad when you were talking, Logan, about in MCs that you have to like stress the importance of energy levels and all of that, because an MC should be a self-starter and a host should be a self-starter. Like, you should never have to worry if you bring me in for an event that I'm going to come in low and you're going to have to like psych me up to be a part of it. Like, that's just that's innate. That should be expected, that the host, it doesn't matter if they're having a bad day or whatever. It's like, when it's time to go and you're showing up and you're getting paid to be at an event, or even if it's volunteer work, like I don't get paid for every event I do. I do some of them because they're important causes. And I know that if I show up to that, the light's going to be on, the electricity is going to be on. So engaging with crowds, very, very important to have an appropriate volume. Very important to engage eye contact, to have body control where you're not twitchy or uncomfortable in your skin. I also just think being confident in what you're wearing is a very, very important thing about an MC. If you don't feel good in your clothes, you're probably not gonna just people can kind of see that. But things to engage an audience. I mean, spending 8 years in minor league baseball, I've definitely done some strange things to engage crowds, from costumes to getting covered in disgusting foods, to stunts and singing and songs and whatever you can pull out from the old Hollywood bag of tricks. What are the three things they say that people get entertained by? Is children, cute children, beautiful women, and pets or animals doing tricks. And I've tried my hand at all of those things to get a roar. People love free stuff too. You're talking about the bratwurst cannon. If you can get people on their feet clamoring for a cheap item, my gosh, it works every time. And so, yeah, I think when you take it back to an event, like, you need to have a gauge of what you're trying to do. And some events are more serious than others, but no event should just be like flat, right? No, I think any situation, even like a somber service or a funeral, should have a moment of joy. And people at community events are more often than not there to have a good time. And anything you can do outside of the unexpected, or make it fun, game it up a little bit, I think the better. And I'm sorry I didn't get into specifics, but I've done charity events and things where there were a lot of games and getting people to switch tables and all of that, and that's very, very fun. And then I've done, every year I do Carol Milgard Breast Center's luncheon, their charity luncheon, and it's very serious and it's very, it's a serious event, but we still are able to laugh and have a good time at it, because it's important for people to leave on a high, after coming to anything.
Yeah, our listeners know that I love sports. So Casey, I always find any MC or host that is coming from the sports world and doing things then that are corporate or nonprofit or anything else that's not sports, I feel like that's such an easy transition, because the hard part, my earlier point with sports too, is if I have a less than experienced MC, it's how do you respond to the team, things not going according to plan, which is the definition of sports, of like the team being really down, or the crowd just, there's just days the crowd's off and things that worked last week aren't working this week, or there's an injury, and how do you come back after there was a serious injury on the field or something that we all need to, how do you read those moments? And
Another thing that a host should never do is take themselves too seriously either. Like a stiff person up there taking the role too seriously. Like nobody wants to see that. Everybody wants something that's personable and relatable. And you think about even the president of the United States. Everybody likes a president that can crack a joke or can step off the pedestal a lot more than the really serious ones.
I think sports are such a fun way because I feel like on the other side, we get a lot of comments. They want to make it more fun. And a lot of the sports entertainment thing it's just all about fun. And so even just borrowing one thing to your more serious event, just for a moment of levity, we've talked on this podcast before, surprising and delighting. So things that can feel unscripted, even if you as the host knew this moment was coming. We've had successful things of like, feel like Oprah, everyone look under your chair, and one seat has a gift card under it at each table. And I've seen grown adults and in nice finery, like on the ground trying to find these gift cards.
For sure.
So
yeah, just getting I love the unexpected, right? Look this way and then all of a sudden something amazing or surprising is happening over here.
Casey, I was just curious when you were talking about that. So how often for you are those types of things planned versus like in the moment? You know what? This seems like a good idea. This is what the room needs. Let's do this.
I think big things like what Logan just brought up, so much of it is planned, right? Like, and I've made a big part of my sort of shtick over the last 30 years of my life is that like I'm not in control of a situation at all and everything's going wrong, but it's all planned, right? Like, and that I'm completely oblivious to this thing, or oh my gosh, I planned it this way and it went wrong, but it's all planned, right? Like it's all written that way. And so I think planning as much as possible on the front end and like not over planning, but being really in your pre-planning is really, really important for writing a script of an event or whatever you're doing, like, and getting into the details and wondering and knowing the lulls, knowing the parts that are going to be the points of interest, and focusing on both of those, right? Like, how do I make this transition shorter? How do I make this moment that I want people to remember more interesting or more exciting? And then like spontaneous stuff for me is usually just crowd work, right? Like if there's someone wearing a ridiculous hat in the crowd, I will definitely like say something about the hat, like love the hat. And then you say that once and that person smiles, whatever. But then if you bring up that person in the hat again, like 30 minutes later, then it's funny. Then people like laugh at it again. So spontaneous stuff is usually more like crowd work. And then everything else, for anytime I'm in front of an audience or I have thought about the hits and the things that I want to do a lot.
We've talked about a couple different events that you've done, but do you have what are your favorite events to MC and why?
So the regular ones I do throughout the year, for the last 8 years, I did baseball at Cheney Stadium, which is incredible. And a lot of these opportunities have come through there, which has been amazing. I moved to Tacoma for this job, for that job, 8 years ago. So I didn't have a ton of connection to Tacoma. I'm a Seattle boy, but my first event I ever hosted was and I did it regularly for the city I grew up in, was the city's dog fashion show. And we would like, this was basically one of my first things I ever got asked to MC when I was like 12 years old, was the city's dog fashion show. And like 50 people would get their dogs together and dress them up, and there would be a program and there'd be music and the dogs would strut down the runway. And it was a very fun event to be a part of. So that one will always be near and dear to my heart. But, I'm honored and very blessed to be a part of Multicare's Sound and Arrows race every year. And that is such an amazing thing to be a part of, just from the fact that when people are running that far and they're investing that much of themselves to being a part of this like community event that everybody's doing together, and you see the people that finish really quick, and like those people are super dedicated, right? Like it's amazing how fast they can run all around Vassalt Park and all around the city, and then they come back and it's like, holy shit, how did you get here so fast? And then it really becomes meaningful as like people come in, and you can see the people that have had injuries, or people that are crying because it means so much to them, and getting to be there at the finish line and encourage them and riff with them and talk with them. That's definitely one of my favorites. There's a few. I mentioned the Carol Milgard luncheon. That's a very, very special one, dear to my heart. The breast cancer, just that whole that community they're really amazing people, and they're really supportive of each other. And I sometimes wonder why and how I get to be in the mix of it, but I do, and I'm really, really blessed. And then actually the Pierce County Library Foundation does a trivia bee every year, and they go like really, really high tech with it. Like it feels like an actual game show, and it's like in person, and there's like big video screens. And I think that the secret here would be that my dream in life is to host like a late night television show or a game show. And when I do that, I actually feel like I'm doing it, and it's very, very fun. So those are some of my favorites that I am lucky enough to get to do every year.
That's awesome. I still can't get over the dog show. You're right. People really like their pets, because I'm like, oh, I want to see that. Sounds
right?
amazing.
Like if you heard that there was going to be a dog fashion show and you had a dog, you would be like, you know what? I think she can do it. Like I think she can do it. And that was a beautiful thing, is like most people were like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that my dog was made for the runway. And some of them absolutely were, and some of them definitely weren't. And that was even funnier, because it's just like, it's the more ridiculous an event is, the more fun you can have with it. Right. And that's why I think the AAA baseball was like such a great fit for me, just because it is ridiculous, and it is like, it's not Major League Baseball, but it's close, but it's not. And there's an absurdity that is expected from that level of sport, and just leaning all the way into it is so fun, so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've kind of pieced together, throughout the conversation, the qualities of a good MC. So I'm curious if there are any other qualities you want to highlight. And I think also like kind of a sub question is like, what's the benefit of hiring out an MC instead of having someone within the organization do it?
I think that, let's start with the second one. Hiring someone externally should be, and I'm kind of hurting my community of people that do this for a living by saying this, but if you have someone in your organization that is confident enough to speak about it and knows their stuff because they're doing it every day, I would honestly recommend that. I think that that's just because if you've got someone that is doing this work every day, that's going and cares about it more than just bringing someone in, that's going to at least level them up like one chunk. Like there's a true sincerity there that I wouldn't take away from and then advocate, oh, no, an outside MC will be better. That being said, there are so many organizations that have incredible people that are doing amazing work, that are changing the world, and they want to have a great event, but there's legitimately not one public speaker in the bunch. And that's okay. Like that's totally normal. Like everybody's got their thing. I'm great at speaking on a microphone in front of 10,000 people, but there are certain things that I could never do and would never pretend to do. So it's a balance, right? And if you can find a great MC that has a good heart and isn't just like a hired gun that's just gonna like come in and do it, like maybe some people are just like fake the funk types where they can just go out there and pretend to care about a cause. Couldn't do it, honestly. Like and in some of my conversations I've had with you, Mary, I was like, here are the things that like I would do this for very cheap to free. Like like there's just certain parts to this that it just means more to be a part of it, and if I can be of service, that's amazing. And I think that that's probably my answer for that piece. The first piece, the qualities, I'm just going to kind of list some of the ones we already talked about, and maybe that will riff me to another place. I think the self-starter thing is really important. You should not have to hype up your MC, and your MC. I don't know if we've touched on this at all, but like if I'm MCing an event, whether it was a Rainier's game or one of these other, like for example, the Trivia Bee thing, it's kind of all I think about, even when I'm not doing it. So it's like when people are paying you an hourly rate, you are getting so much more of my mental headspace because I don't want to go up there and not know what I'm talking about. Like, I think that that's probably the least attractive thing you could do, is be hired to do a job and then show up unprepared. And so you need someone that's going to do their homework. Like, you need someone that's a student of their craft or cares enough about it that they are going to think about it and live in it. And so that's those two are really, really important to me, is like energy and knowing your stuff. And then everything else is like, I think there are some teachable things there.
Yeah, I always feel like too, as coming from the planner perspective, for me, I always look, I love working with hosts that have a willingness to learn and are open to adjusting, maybe what they normally do to fit that audience. For me, I had a couple red flags with hosts before who don't want to do rehearsals, which I always like hurts my heart, because to me, it doesn't matter how professional you are, you need to do a rehearsal. And unfortunately for this case, it did show during the event that this had been very cold for that person to come in, even if they had notes. And so that's something that I now, when I work with hosts or get them to make sure that's included in whatever we've negotiated, that they have that rehearsal time and prep time, since I hope I have hosts like you, Casey, but depending on the variety, even in-house, if it's just someone from the organization, making sure they understand that even the best have to rehearse.
Well, and it's like, are you a team player, right? Because a host should be, and an MC should be a leader in their moment to be given their spot, right? Like, if you want to take it to a sports analogy, it's like, this is maybe like a running back on a football team. It's like, you give me the ball, and when it's my time to take the ball, I'm going to run where you tell me to go, right? And maybe I'll improv a little bit, but like, the best running backs are told what the play is, where to go, and when you give me the ball, I'm going to go and shine. But you have to be a team player, right? Because it's not, more often than not, a host or an MC is not the one writing their material so much, or they're delivering someone else's message, and there is a flexibility in that.
And Casey, if someone is listening to this, I'm just thinking, if they're like, maybe I have the qualities of an MC, maybe they are an event professional, maybe there's somebody else, I don't know, but they're like, I'm interested in learning more about how to do this. What would you say? Like, how would you suggest that they get started in doing something like this?
I mean, I feel like my story is kind of that way. Is, I think you probably just need to throw yourself out there and say yes to something. So now I think people have more opportunities than they ever did before. It's like, if you want to be the host of something, the best way to prove that without anybody's permission is to host your own thing, right? So find your, kind of like what you guys are doing, start your own podcast, start your own show. I have friends that do YouTube shows in varieties of ways in which they film themselves cooking, or they rate and review scents like fragrances. And you can do that for not completely free, but like almost free. Like, if you are really out there and trying to start passionate about starting a video podcast or a vlog, and you don't have the money for a microphone and a basic camera, I've got plenty of stuff. You can reach out to me and I'll just give it to you. So what I would say is, say yes to things, get involved in things, go to community events. Like, that's another thing. It's like, if you want to be involved, like that's a huge thing. When I moved to Tacoma, I was like, what are the things that I want to be a part of? And I saw all the things I thought were cool. And I just started being there, like going out and talking to the people and meeting the people, sending them a compliment on Instagram, being like, I think what you do is really, really cool. And more often than not, in like cities or communities, if you're that person that's like, I'm here supporting you, I love what you're doing, and you say that and you're not shy about that, people are receptive to that, right? And then it's like, hey, by the way, I've got this urge, this fire inside of me to host or to be an MC. If you ever had an opportunity, I would love that. Gosh, people are going to give you a shot, I think life works in mysterious ways, but sometimes you've got to kind of take the paddle and go. and guide yourself the way you want to. And yeah, for those that are interested and apprehensive, it's time to drop that apprehension and just make things happen for yourself.
I love that. Logan, I'm over here. I'm like, are we the podcast hosts? We literally introduce ourselves as co-hosts, and I've never thought of us even
We
being
are. I
like,
would say I'm never a host, but we are, I guess, co-hosts
Yeah.
of a podcast. So I guess
co-hosts of a
that
podcast.
counts. And
leave
yeah,
it to the professionals.
to dovetail on your comment, I know for me, I started a YouTube channel during COVID because I'd always wanted to. And for me, a lot of it had been just the panic of like, I'm not going to be good at it. And I can't remember. I think someone had given me the advice, and I think I've talked about it on the podcast, but just it was very affirming to go back and watch people's first videos, because I had someone be like, all these people you think are good didn't start good. They got good by doing it.
Right.
And so I went back and watched a couple of people who I viewed as polished, professional folks on YouTube. I love their content. I went back and watched their first videos, and it's like, oh, wow, they have come a long way. And nowadays I have almost like over 100 videos that I'm like, if you go back and watch my first video, you can see I was still playing and figuring out audio and
Oh, for
pacing.
sure. And your speech pattern gets more measured. Your body language changes a lot. I remember when I first started doing video interviews with people, I was like a bobblehead. When people were talking, I would be like, and it was my dad, actually, who's probably my biggest has been my biggest critic my entire life, was like, why are you doing this when people are talking? And I hadn't even noticed it. And now whenever I'm on camera, whether I'm doing an interview with someone or when they're talking, like my instinct is to go like, but I just don't. I'm just like, maybe every once in a while. And I'll probably watch this video and be like, gosh, you still do it. So, but you get better. You have to be critical of yourself. That would be another great quality of a host. It's like, are you critical of yourself? Are you watching your tape? Are you recognizing your strengths and your weaknesses and leaning into one and working on the other? Those are important things to do. And you kind of have to be a little bit of to be great at anything. And it doesn't just be a host, but like to be great at anything, you have to be willing to be a little weird about it. Like you have to be into it, really into it. And you don't have to talk about it all the time, but like behind the scenes, you have to be really into it. And two, you have to be willing to face the demons of like, I'm not perfect at this. So what do I want to do to get better at it?
What are 1 to 2 things you wish event planners or organizers or hosts would do or remember when working with an MC or host such as yourself?
Man, that's a really, really tough one. I think because when we were just talking about like basic information and getting your stuff together is like really, really important stuff. I've been really lucky to just work with, for the most external organizations that I worked for outside of like the company I worked for, have been amazing. Like I don't know, and maybe I'm just blowing wind, but like I genuinely, they've been amazing, and I feel like I'm over accommodated sometimes. And so I maybe just like extraneous meetings or like doubling down on the same thing over and over and over. Especially if you've done an event like several times, like if it's a recurring thing, like, hey, this is the 6th time we've done this event. We've done it 6 years in a row. We don't need to, there's maybe like 1 or 2 of these like check-ins or meetings that we could forego. But then it's like, yeah, that's annoying to me, mildly, not even annoying. It's like mildly, I guess annoying is, I don't have a synonym for it. Mildly annoying to me, but I think it's really important that they feel comfortable, right? Like the most important person at an event, and this is good advice for an MC, is not you, the MC, it's your client. It's the people that hired you. It doesn't matter what you think of how it went. It's like at the end of the day, if they walk away happy and they are pleased with your work and the event, then it doesn't matter. Even like sometimes I'll be critical in an event space situation. I'll be like, man, I really screwed up. And they were like, that was the best thing ever. Thank you so much. Can you put us on the calendar for next year? And it's like, I have to remind myself, like, they're happy. That's the most important thing. Make them happy. So I have no notes for the people that have hired me. I'm glad that they've been happy over the years.
Well, thank you. And thank you for sharing your thoughts today and being here with us. And we are going to put you on the spot really quick, which we like to do some last minute sentence finishers. So these are kind of transitioning out of the topic and just more about you, if we may. So, our first question for you is your favorite thing to do in your downtime is what?
Write and paint.
Okay. Very cool.
Your favorite productivity tool is?
A notebook and a pen.
Classic. Love it. Last question we have for you is something that you're looking forward to this year, whether business or personal, is?
I'm writing a television show.
Oh,
That's very exciting.
okay.
Yeah.
Share more when you can with us.
I definitely will. I definitely will.
Okay.
It's very exciting.
Awesome.
And Casey, before we let you go, where can listeners find you if they want to follow you, learn about this TV show, your hosting adventures?
For sure. So I'm on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I don't do any of, I guess there's plenty more, but the main ones as Casey Catherwood, CASEY, CATHERWOOD. And my artwork and paintings can be found at caseycatherwood.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Casey, for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah. And that brings us to our bonus tip. Mary, you've got our bonus tip this week.
I do. And as I was thinking through this, I actually wasn't quite sure if it had to do with our topic or didn't. But as we talked, it actually really aligns, which it doesn't always. But here we go. So our bonus tip for today is to review program scripts when you can to ensure that the content aligns with the event messaging. I had a client recently tell me that an event they did in the past, a speaker's remarks were so off from their messaging. And so now they ask the programmatic speakers, who are really a chunk of the program, to submit their planned remarks ahead of time, which I think is a great tip, something good to think about, and could be helpful for you in many cases. And so that is our bonus tip for today, to review program scripts when it makes sense to do so. There you go.
It's a nice little follow-up to our larger discussion about hosting and content. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Better Events Pod. You can send us an email at bettereventspod@gmail.com. Reminder, we are looking for mailbag questions. So please submit your questions, whether it's about event planning, production, running your own business, just about Mary and I. We will be doing a giveaway for everyone who submits a question. So you could potentially win a little fun thing. And feel free to connect with Mary and I on LinkedIn. We love hearing from you guys. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back in your feeds again next Wednesday.